This is who Joe Biden traded for the Russian merchant of death. So many WNBA players hate Caitlin Clark so much when she is the best thing that could have happened to the league. And she's not the best thing that happened to the league because she's white. It's because she's a good player. It's because she's the best player. Now, imagine if Caitlin Clark said the inverse of this. It would be reprehensible, condemned, and understandably so. You've got all of these individual players. You have sports commentators, people like Ryan Clark, who constantly tout of the racial tensions that exist in the league, when in reality, they are the ones perpetuating and amplifying these racial tensions with their anti-white hatred for Caitlin Clark.
This is why the WNBA is never, ever, ever going to work and never make money. And this is exactly what Caitlin Clark gets for bending the knee. Do you guys remember when she said, when we lost all respect for her, when she said, I want to say I've earned every single thing, but as a white person, there is privilege. And the more we can elevate black women, this is going to be a beautiful thing. That's when it was all over. And Angel Reese and Brittney Griner, they walk around like the league owes them something. Even Ryan Clark's attitude as if, bro, where's the victimhood? These are freaking millionaires. Like, what are you talking about? It's attitude, it's no humility, just entitlement, and that's not confidence, it's arrogance with receipts.
It's the story that has the entire sports world reeling. Superstar Brittney Griner absolutely loses it on the court, and former swimming champion Riley Gaines blasts her in a fiery response to her shocking attack on Caitlin Clark. This single woman of conflict has ripped the curtain back on the WNBA, exposing a dark underbelly of jealousy, hypocrisy, and a league that appears to be at war with itself. What started as a few heated words caught on camera has spiraled into a full-blown crisis, revealing an organization that seems hell-bent on destroying its own golden goose. This isn't just about a hard foul or a controversial comment. It's about the soul of a league, the corrupting influence of ideology, and the uncomfortable truth about what happens when a generational talent becomes a target for the very people who should be celebrating her. The scene of the crime was an intense late-game battle between Caitlin Clark's Indiana Fever and Brittney Griner's Atlanta Dream. The air was thick with the tension that now follows Clark into every arena. She is not just a player. She is a phenomenon. She is the reason dads and daughters are filling seats that were once empty, the reason TV ratings are shattering records, the reason the WNBA is finally, after nearly 30 years, a topic of daily conversation on mainstream sports shows. And on this night, she was doing what she does best, winning. With her team pulling ahead in the final quarter, the frustration on the opposing bench was palpable. That frustration boiled over when Brittney Griner, one of the most decorated and imposing figures in the history of the league, committed her final foul. She was out of the game. As she stomped toward the bench, defeated and furious, the cameras zoomed in. In that moment, Griner muttered something under her breath. It was quick, almost lost in the noise of the game, but it was captured for eternity. The clip hit social media like a lightning strike, and within minutes an army of online sleuths began a modern-day Zapruder film analysis. What did she say? The video was played and replayed, slowed down and debated in thousands of comment sections. Two theories emerged. The first and most explosive was that Griner, in a moment of undisguised contempt, had looked in Clark's direction and mouthed the ugly, racially charged phrase, "Trash a white girl." The second theory, pushed by Griner's defenders and media apologists, was that she had simply been venting at the officials, saying, "Trash up, whack call." But for millions watching, the context was everything. The direction of her gaze, the simmering resentment that has plagued Clark's rookie season, and the undeniable tension between the old guard and the new star, it all pointed to a conclusion that the league was desperate to avoid. This was not just a player upset with a referee. This was a direct shot, an attack that laid bare the toxic jealousy that Caitlin Clark has faced since the moment she was drafted. The WNBA had a crisis on its hands, and its response would be more damning than the video itself. In the critical hours and days following the viral incident, the WNBA's leadership faced a defining test. With one of their biggest stars, a player they had championed and promoted for years, being accused of directing a racial slur at their new cash cow, the world waited for a response. A statement. An investigation. A simple acknowledgement of the controversy. The answer from the league was a deafening, resounding silence. No investigation was launched. No press releases were issued. The league, an organization that built its modern brand on speaking out on every social issue imaginable, suddenly had nothing to say about a firestorm raging within its own house. This silence was not just a failure of public relations. It was a strategic decision that became utterly indefensible when contrasted with the league's actions just weeks prior. Before the Griner incident, another prominent player, Angel Reese of the Chicago Sky, had made public accusations against fans of the Indiana Fever. Reese, a fierce rival of Clark since their college days, claimed she was being targeted and harassed by fans, with a strong implication that the hostility was racially motivated. In response to these claims, which were unsubstantiated by any video or evidence, the WNBA didn't hesitate.
They acted with swift and decisive force. They publicly announced a full-scale investigation, validating Reese's concerns and casting a dark shadow over Clark's fan base. The league invested significant time and resources, sending a clear message that it took such allegations with the utmost seriousness. The investigation eventually concluded after finding zero evidence to support Reese's claims. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. When the narrative suited them, one that painted Caitlin Clark supporters as a potentially racist mob, the league was a whirlwind of proactive, self-righteous action. But when the narrative was inconvenient, one that featured their own established star, Brittney Griner, as the aggressor, they were nowhere to be found. They created a blatantly obvious double standard. Unsubstantiated claims against fans demanded an immediate public inquiry, while video evidence of potential slur from one of their own players was to be ignored. It was a calculated and cowardly move, and it created the perfect opening for an outsider to step in and hold the league accountable in a way it never saw coming. Just as the WNBA's wall of silence seemed impenetrable, a voice of dissent erupted from an entirely different sport. Riley Gaines, the former University of Kentucky swimmer who had become a national figure for her fight for fairness in women's athletics, saw the injustice playing out and refused to stay quiet. Gaines was not just another pundit chasing clicks. She was a battle-hardened warrior who had been through the fire of institutional corruption. She was a woman who had been forced to share a locker room with biological male Leah Thomas, who had been told by the NCAA to smile and accept a demotion in her own sport. When she spoke out, she was vilified by the media, targeted with threats, and smeared as a bigot. She knew better than almost anyone what it felt like to be abandoned by the very organizations that were supposed to protect female athletes. She had the scars to prove her credibility. So when Riley Gaines saw the WNBA's cowardly handling of the Griner-Clark affair, she recognized a corrupt pattern instantly. She saw an institution protecting a favored narrative at the expense of fairness and truth. She took to social media and delivered a series of devastating blows that shattered the league's carefully constructed silence. She didn't just question what Griner said. She eviscerated the league for its hypocrisy. She called out the media for their pathetic attempt to gaslight the public, famously stating, "You can watch and make up your own mind as to what it appears Brittney Griner is saying." It was a simple but brilliant line that empowered the public to trust their own eyes over the spin of professional apologists. Gaines's intervention transformed the story. It was no longer just a basketball drama. It was a national referendum on institutional integrity, double standards, and the courage to speak uncomfortable truths. And she was just getting started. To land her most powerful punch, Gaines reached back to a chapter of Brittney Griner's life that the WNBA and its media allies would prefer everyone forget. She reminded the world of the extraordinary price America paid to bring Griner home. This wasn't just any athlete. This was a woman who had been languishing in a Russian penal colony after being arrested for carrying a vape cartridge with cannabis oil. Her 9-year sentence was, for all intents and purposes, a geopolitical hostage situation. The Biden administration, under immense public pressure, orchestrated a prisoner exchange to secure her freedom. But the man they traded for her was not some low-level criminal. He was Victor Bout, the infamous merchant of death. This was not a nickname born of hyperbole. Victor Bout was one of the most prolific and notorious international arms dealers of the last half-century. A man whose real-life activities were so dramatic, they inspired a major Hollywood film. He built a global network to move illicit shipments into the world's most volatile regions. His deliveries helped fuel brutal conflicts, propped up dangerous regimes, and gave shadowy groups the tools they needed to create chaos. He was a merchant of discord and humans suffering on a scale that is difficult to comprehend. And the United States government decided that trading this architect of destruction for a WNBA player was a worthy deal. This is a context that makes Griner's alleged attack on Caitlin Clark so utterly staggering. To be the recipient of such an unprecedented act of national grace, to be saved from a Russian gulag at the cost of unleashing one of the world's most dangerous men, and then to return to America and allegedly spew divisive, racially charged rhetoric at a fellow athlete, it struck a deep nerve. It spoke to a level of ingratitude that was shocking to millions. Gaines masterfully wielded this fact not as a cheap shot, but as a crucial piece of moral context. It raised the stakes of Griner's actions from a simple on-court spat to a profound betrayal of the very country that had sacrificed so much to save her. Continued in next message, due to character limit. Continued. Punctuation corrected text. Part 2. As the controversy deepened, the WNBA's strategy shifted from silence to suppression. When the independent media outlet Outkick announced their intention to do what no other major outlet had dared, attend an Atlanta Dream game and ask Brittney Griner directly about the comment, the league's panic became palpable. The process of getting media credentials for a professional sporting event is typically routine for any legitimate news organization. But not this time. Outkick's request was abruptly denied. The official reason provided by the league was a sudden and highly suspicious lack of space. This flimsy excuse was universally seen for what it was, a blatant attempt to control the narrative by silencing dissenting press. In an era where the term free press is under constant debate, here was a professional sports league actively engaging in a cover-up. They were not just ignoring a story. They were using their institutional power to prevent journalists from even asking questions. This move was a catastrophic miscalculation. It took the focus off Griner's words and placed it squarely on the league's actions. The story was now about censorship. The WNBA had transformed itself from a silent observer into an active antagonist of journalistic inquiry. This act of suppression confirmed every suspicion about their motives. They weren't protecting an innocent player. They were protecting a guilty narrative. They knew they couldn't defend Griner's actions, so they decided to prevent anyone from questioning them. It was this overt act of cowardice that led Riley Gaines to deliver her most famous and damning verdict on the entire organization. I have never seen an organization more committed to self-imploding than the WNBA. With that one sentence, delivered with the cold precision of a surgeon, Riley Gaines perfectly encapsulated the absurdity of the league's behavior. It was not just a clever insult. It was an accurate diagnosis of a deeply dysfunctional institution. The league had been handed a golden ticket in Caitlin Clark, a player who possessed a rare combination of transcendent talent and massive commercial appeal. She was single-handedly making the league more money and drawing more attention than it had ever seen. A logical organization would have built its entire marketing strategy around her, protected her, and celebrated her as the face of its future. The WNBA did the exact opposite. As Gaines pointed out, they were actively sabotaging their own success. They allowed a culture of resentment and jealousy to fester, where veteran players felt emboldened to take cheap shots at their new superstar, both physically on the court and verbally in the media. They engaged in blatant hypocrisy, launching a sham investigation to appease one player's unsubstantiated claims while ignoring video evidence against another. And when confronted, they resorted to censorship. This, Gaines argued, was the behavior of an organization captured by a toxic ideology, one that valued protecting the feelings of select few over the growth of the sport itself. They were so afraid of offending their established stars that they were willing to alienate the millions of new fans Clark had brought them. The WNBA wasn't just mismanaging a golden opportunity. It was, as Gaines so brilliantly put it, actively choosing self-destruction. The war against Caitlin Clark is bigger than Brittney Griner. The infamous comment was merely a symptom of a much wider and more insidious disease running through the veins of the WNBA, a deep-seated resentment of Clark's talent, her popularity, and what she represents. From the moment she stepped onto the professional stage, she has been treated not as a welcome savior, but as an unwelcome intruder. This hostility has been most visible in the on-court violence she has endured. The most notorious example was a blatant cheap shot from Chicago Sky guard Chendi Carter, who blindsided Clark with a hip check away from ball, a foul so egregious it was later upgraded to a flagrant 1 penalty. Carter's initial flippant dismissal of the act as just basketball spoke volumes. This physical aggression is complemented by a relentless psychological campaign waged by other players and commentators. Her historic achievements are constantly downplayed. Her talent is qualified with backhanded compliments. She is criticized for showing the same fiery emotion that is celebrated in her male counterparts. There is a palpable sense among some veterans that she is an undeserving beneficiary of media hype rather than the creator of it. They seem to resent that this rookie has, in a few short months, eclipsed the league's established stars in both fame and influence. The league's refusal to address the Griner situation is the ultimate validation of this toxic culture. By failing to defend their biggest star, the WNBA has sent a clear message to the rest of the league. The war on Caitlin Clark can continue, and there will be no consequences. The WNBA now finds itself at a defining moment, backed into a corner of its own making. It is an organization torn between its past and its future, between a small clique of resentful veterans and the millions of new fans demanding fairness for their favorite player. The league's leadership has been exposed as weak, hypocritical, and completely inept at handling crisis. They have alienated a massive new audience, damaged their credibility, and made themselves a case study in institutional failure. The perfect storm has arrived. A once-in-a-generation talent is being actively undermined. Racial tensions are being cynically stoked. And the league's response has been to pour gasoline on the fire. The ultimate question remains, can the WNBA save itself? Is there anyone in a position of leadership with the courage to stamp out the jealousy, enforce a single standard of conduct, and embrace the phenomenal opportunity that Caitlin Clark represents? Or was Riley Gaines' prophecy correct? Are we simply watching the slow, agonizing public suicide of a professional sports league? A league that was handed a winning lottery ticket and, out of spite and ideological blindness, chose to tear it into a million pieces? Based on the evidence so far, the outlook is grim. But thanks to the fearless intervention of an outsider, the WNBA can no longer hide its dysfunction in the shadows. The whole world is watching, and the clock is ticking.